Alrighty, it's finally here, and it did take a bit of time, but hey, we're here. I wanted to take a brief trip down memory lane with where my office was originally. If you'd like a deeper dive into the space, check out our room tour from last year in the upper right-hand corner of the screen. This room was originally meant for my live streaming that I used to do on Twitch. During the pandemic, it turned into a work-from-home space that kind of stayed that way for a period of time. After that, it became a temporary storage room for renovations around the house. During the downtime, I realized I didn't like going from corner to corner in the back of the wall to look at all of my figures. That was the driving force for the office for me, but I finally started growing into what I like and defined that by overhauling the space. I wanted something that was more me. I want to start with the workspace, and I'll keep it brief because we know why we're here. Starting with the desk mat, I wanted continuity in my workspace. It's a Star Wars themed office, so I wanted to reflect that with smaller tidbits that weren't overpowering in my work area. The same goes for the gear that I work with. Some of the items here, like my soundboard, are out of place, but that'll be updated later. I was able to take the original desk and downsize its footprint by almost half. This allowed me to sit down and really figure out what's needed and what's just taking up space. I no longer use a 3-monitor setup, and a lot of the extra fluff is gone. There are still minor adjustments here and there, but the majority of it is present, and I like where it is for now. Since I also opt for gray flooring, I wanted a rug that would bring the space together and maintain that minimal style that I wanted. While I'm more of a fan of the Republic era, this was as good as it got, and it was the style that I wanted. Keep in mind, this is a thin rug that is customizable by the rug mat you select. I wanted more cushion for the look-in, since I plan to admire my collection. The detailing found throughout the rug is clear, and after 3 months of owning it, I haven't noticed any form of wear on its design. It isn't the original rug I had in mind for the space, but I've come to appreciate the way it guides me into the room while I'm walking in. Some might consider the room too dark or unappealing, but I like the way it makes me feel. It's calming, and with that calm, I wanted small forms of action on the wall through art. This is a work in progress, and I still have other prints to frame. But for now, I like where I am for a starting point. The bigger question is how to like the prints. I'm still figuring that out. Keep in mind, Sideshow isn't the only place to buy art prints. I picked up this particular print from Acme Archives Direct. Finally, the print that got away, the original one that I slept on. I swore I'd never let it happen again. I really needed this one closest to me. As for the back wall, I'm still in the Detolf family for now, but that'll change at some point as I reach the end game. I love the museum-style look of the units, but there's so much space that isn't used, and it does bother me here and there. I didn't just want my figure shining light off of black paint, so I took it a step further and purchased acoustic panels, which now serve 2 purposes. That's what the space is for me and how I planned for it. With all of that out of the way, let's take a deeper look at what's in the Detolfs. If you enjoy our content so far, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Let's get started. For the first shelf, this is the Season 2 approach to the Mandalorian Coven before Din received his signet. I also altered my Death Watch for more of a rogue appearance. I wanted an intimidating approach to this group, and it's about where I'd like it to be. At this point, it's micro adjustments to the poses to make them feel a little more realistic. Starting with the Heavy Mandalorian, he's an absolute unit, and I was one of the lucky ones to pick him up before he sold out. The Death Watch is slightly modified with axe-wove armor pieces and Qui-Gon's poncho. Jango's poncho might be easier to find though. I also have the armor who looks absolutely stunning. Lastly, we have Grogu and the Mandalorian. I modified this figure by taking out the bodysuit, which made posing a lot better for him. I also wanted more of a cowboy lean in his pose. It feels kind of like I'm just here so I don't get fined. After learning about this underground coven of Mandalorians, there's so much history between all of them that I wanted to encapsulate that in one shelf. As we moved down, I was finally able to get the shelf that I've been after for such a long time. Originally, I wanted the Death Trooper Specialist and a few Death Trooper grunts, but this is a different approach with the same feel, and I like it. Moff Gideon appears intimidating, untouchable, and commanding, surrounded by troops. It doesn't get any better than this. The character's got this aura of authority and power. I wanted that appearance of seeing a calm storm. Behind him, I wanted a pair of dark troopers at the ready. There's nothing scarier than seeing the machines that Mando couldn't really defeat backing up Moff Gideon. Protecting the front line, we have the Death Troopers. I'd prefer specialists, but I'm content with what I have because they really look good together. This shelf alone is top 3 for me, and I think you can feel what I'm feeling when I look at this. For the third shelf, I have the dynamic duo. I'm still on the fence about getting Quill because I don't want to purchase a figure that I don't have an attachment to. But he is the reason we were able to keep IG-11 around. Hands down my favorite Mandalorian release, this figure is top 10 in my collection and I could never replace it. As for IG-11, he was an instant pickup for me because I enjoyed the dynamic between his character and Mando. For the pose, I wanted the look of a mismatched partnership, but a willingness to work together, which we saw in the show. It's just, do I pick up Quill? Let me know down below. Lastly, we have the transport troopers. This shelf could be expanded on, and I've thought about it, but I'm not sure where I want to go until the Mandalorian release with Din Djarin's portrait. This pose is Din trying to calm down Mayfield's character, but the bigger picture to this shelf was having Din face away from us with his helmet off in a sea of other troopers. Do I go that far just to display an emotion? That's one heck of a cost to do so, but I did love the fact that he was willing to go against his creed to save Grogu. We'll just have to wait and see. Moving on to the next Detolf, we have the 332nd Battalion. There are a total of 8 figures on this shelf, and I wanted that. 2 of these will be swapped out for Captain Vaughn and Jesse later. Do I really need to say much? There's so many emotions on this shelf because we know how it all ends. Beginning with Ahsoka, we have her front and center leading the clones, similar to what we saw in the gunship before the Siege of Mandalore. At her side, we have Commander Rex with his helmet on and ready to lead the attack. Like I said earlier, I wanted this to feel like she had a battalion behind her, so having 6 troopers behind her fit that vision for me. When it all come together, this will more than likely be a top 5 shelf for me. It's definitely up there, but it isn't complete just yet. Moving down, we have the fallen soldiers of the Republic. Parallel to this shelf is Moff Gideon, but these are 2 totally different eras, and I wanted the feeling of Cody being a good soldier following orders. I'm still hopeful we'll see Commander Fox or Commander Thayer at some point, because I'd love for this to be strictly the Coruscant Guard display, but I'm happy with where it is for now. Not to mention, our collection spaces are meant to tell a story that we want to tell. It doesn't have to be a canon storyline if you don't want it to be. What is the display in your collection people wonder why you chose? What storyline were you going for? Let us know down below. Also, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content so far. On the third shelf, we have Count Dooku and Jango Fett. This is another work in progress display, and it won't be done until the Geonosis battle droids are released. I plan to have them behind Jango and Dooku in the final display. For now, it gets the idea across even though they don't have the droid army by their side. Dooku is a must for my display, and I'm still hopeful for the Tales of the Jedi release of his younger appearance. Later on, I also plan to swap Jango's helmet with his portrait. I feel like it'd come together a little better. Like I said, I'm very happy with where it is now. It's just a waiting game, and I have time to plan. For the final shelf, I have a few Master Jedi. We don't have many floating around from Hot Toys, but there are still a few that I personally like to see, from Depa Billaba, Plo Koon, to Mace Windu. Beginning with Yoda, this was my favorite appearance of his character. I didn't want the older version, and I'm not really a fan of that look, but this one's really nice. As for Plo Koon, this is a custom piece because I really loved his character and needed his representation. Lastly, Qui-Gon Jinn. This is a figure that I wanted, but I feel like I'd appreciate it more if we had Padawan Kenobi. If not, I'm still happy to have him. At some point, I hope to see more Jedi from Hot Toys. They teased Mace Windu earlier this year through the battle droid, so here's hoping for a 2023 announcement. The Community Grail. Around the time I picked this up, my wife introduced me to Star Wars, and I fell in love with his story arc, so I needed this release. It doesn't require a dynamic pose for him to exude presence. In fact, I like to keep it simple for that reason. Parallel to this display, I wanted another moment, and if you watch the series, you know. This is one of my favorite pieces, and when it's time to add the two 501st behind him, it will be that much cooler. What would you do? Would you keep him alone or have him flanked by two other clones? Beneath him is an old life that he left behind. I wanted to create the last fight as if they were handling the siege of Mandalore together. Fun fact, I copied Anakin's pose from the fight he had with Obi-Wan on Mustafar. I liked the stance, and I wanted it for my display. Seeing the three of them together again in Season 7 of Clone Wars was an awesome moment. I wanted to have my own moment in my display, and this is where I am for now. If anything, it'll be micro adjustments to Ahsoka and Obi-Wan before I find the right pose. Not to mention, posing around Ahsoka's seamless arms might be a bit of a hassle. But it's a delicate balance that will take a while. That's the fun in collecting for me at least, but I'll get there. Instead of parallel shelves, I have a parallel shelf. This is me showing what Anakin fought for in two different periods of time, the Republic and the Empire. As I said earlier, I'm a fan of Anakin's story arc, and I also love hearing about new releases for his character. Although I have to admit, I'm okay with having one Vader piece in my collection. Two max, but that's because the other one will look good with the Inquisitors. I did purchase the stat version, but that's for a bigger display that I have in mind for the endgame. For now, having these two side by side, mirroring each other, is perfect for me. For the final shelf, I have yet another Anakin. This is a work in progress, and I'm waiting to find the tunic, tabards, and undershirt before displaying a Season 3 to 5 version of Anakin. Rather than have him stuffed in a box waiting for other pieces of clothes, I chose to put a Jedi robe on him and went for an ominous pose. Not a lot of people display their figures with the back facing them, but I do. Not to mention, the shelf parallel to him are Master Jedi in the direction he's facing. For the next Detolf unit, we have the robed Boba from the 2-pack Deluxe in the Tusken Raiders. This appearance is a favorite of mine, and I only wanted the pack for this particular look. In the Book of Boba Fett, we learn the origins of this appearance, and it made him look that much cooler in my display. So much so that I wanted to pair the Tuskens with him instead of my original idea of Anakin killing them. Arguably figure of the year, and I'm happy to have him. The Tuskens weren't received well and probably one of the lesser sought after pieces. I understand the price tag is daunting, but in hand, I understand why the figure is set where it is. Not to mention they pair very nicely with Boba, even if we don't have the Black Raiders, which are the ones I prefer. On the second shelf, I have the reclaimed armor from the 2-pack Deluxe set. The armor is amazing and I can't take anything from it, but I prefer the Book of Boba Fett appearance myself. This is one that I actually plan to trade with my wife since she likes this appearance of him, but he'll stay here for now until the next release. Since the robe version of Boba wasn't given as a single release, I had to commit to the 2-pack and get him that way. It's still a phenomenal pack though if you're looking to pick it up. On the third shelf, we have the statement piece. Eye leveled while I'm sitting at the desk, I have the repaint armor Boba Fett and Throne. Yet another phenomenal release by Hot Toys this year. I have nothing but high praise for this set, and if you're interested in watching our review for him, check out the banner in the upper right hand corner of the screen. For now, this figure doesn't need a companion piece to hold its own. While I am waiting for Fennec, they don't need each other in the same display. For the final shelf, I have the Death Watch Mandalorian. This was originally purchased to go with Clan Kryze when they all come in, so he's a placeholder for now. When they're all set up in the display, it just might look as good as the Mandalorian shelf, but we'll have to wait and see. For now, this figure is a customizer's dream. I'm happy to not only have one, but two altogether in different covens. Stay tuned for next year's collection tour and we'll see how that pans out. Moving on to the fifth Detolf, we have Rey Skywalker. One of the more controversial characters in the Star Wars universe, but a character that could be expanded on in a very interesting way. You have a Jedi with Palpatine's blood, untrained and kind of overpowered in the rise of Skywalker. Unless, of course, they flesh out more of her story through other media. Regardless, I'm happy to have her in my collection, and I look forward to the future of this character's story arc. Moving down to the second shelf, we have two Chrome Clone Troopers. I took a few personal liberties to make them appear a bit more elite. On their chests, we have the ammo pouches from Captain Rex, and I also swapped out their standard blaster rifles for the rifles with the Death Watch Mandalorian release. I have my complaints about these, and they aren't my proudest purchases. To learn more, check out our review in the upper right hand corner of the video. For now, here's hoping we eventually get a release for Padme. I wanted these two flanking her because not only do they accent well off of what was teased, they also match her ship, and I wanted to create my own storyline. Again, here's hoping. For the third shelf, we have Lonely Old Echo from the Bad Batch. My vision for this shelf won't be seen for quite some time, and that's unfortunate. I wanted the entire squad to appear as if they're trying to break out of the Detolf together. At the time of recording this, we're still waiting to hear about Hunter's release, and I currently have Crosshair on pre-order. For now, I'm happy to have Echo secured. I look forward to Wrecker's release and hopefully, just hopefully, a different portrait design for Crosshair because Echo's frowning a little bit more than Crosshair is in his prototype. For the final shelf, we have Arena Suit Boba Fett. This is a figure that could mean seeing more from the comic book series, and I love that. I like what this represents, but it isn't a piece I plan to keep in my collection for long. For Boba Fett fans, this is a definite pickup. If not, don't buy into the hype. For the final Detolf, we have the evolution of Darth Maul on the top shelf. Maul is one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe, and even though he received the lowest rating on our channel so far, I am glad to have a Clone Wars representation of him. Now, I chose to give Clone Wars Maul Moff Gideon's Darksaber and equip him with half of his original saber. This is the Maul that I know and the one that I wanted, including a Mandalorian throne, but I digress. If you're interested in that review, a banner should be popping up right about here for you to check out. Getting back on topic. The Solo Maul takes the cake for me, even though I really love the Phantom Menace release. You can't deny the engineering on his legs. For the Phantom Menace Maul, this was my first Star Wars figure, and I figured all DX releases came this way. A vehicle, 2 portraits, a droid? Hot Toys definitely skate by these days. It's a reason this shelf sit up so high in my display. Moving down, we have Kylo Ren's display. I prefer dark side users, and I feel like their stories are a bit more interesting. Not to mention the costume design for them are usually a lot cooler. If I had to pick one over the others, I'd have to say The Force Awakens Kylo is the better draw. I like that his hilt is a bit more worn and he's got this Reaper-like appearance to him. As for the others, they look great. I still prefer the original hair to the prototype though for the Rise of the Skywalker release. Other than that, they look really good together. If you haven't already, don't forget to like our video and subscribe for future content. We have a few figures stuck in Sideshow limbo that should be coming soon. On the third shelf, we have FN2187. The story that could have been. I collected these and mourn what this character could have evolved into. We all have our grails, and believe it or not, FN2187 is one of my personal grail pieces. Starting with Finn, I still kept the post from last year because it speaks to me. It's what I would have wanted for a character like him. The Force Awakening in a Force-sensitive stormtrooper, just... I wanted to display an evolution of what he was versus what he is. Granted, I also wanted Captain Phasma towering over him in the back. But I just haven't committed to finding her yet. Last but certainly not least, we have the final shelf in the collection. Both of these releases are top tier for me when it comes to Luke Skywalker. I loved his appearance in the Kylo Ren comic, which is why I wanted Crate Luke. The deluxe appearance of Luke is amazing because of his likeness and what's included. It's probably one of the cheaper versions of Luke out there, but it's surprising because I find the likeness to be the best. For Crate Luke, the likeness isn't 100%, but I thought he looked cool in the comics and I wanted that appearance of him for my collection. Now I'm just waiting for Mando Luke. Before we sign off, I want to give a shout out to another creator in the collector space. They also recently shared a collection tour over on their channel, so if you like watching them, swing by and let them know I sent you. TK421 Collectibles is one of the channels I personally check out for reviews. He's got this authentic approach to how he shares thoughts and the way he filmed his material. It's kind of like, imagine going over a friend's house and they show you their figure. That's the feeling I get when I'm watching him. He's a stand-up guy and his engagement with his community is top tier. Subscribe to his channel, check out his latest content, and you'll see exactly what I mean. With that said, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully you enjoyed today's upload. I'm already looking forward to the next collection tour update, and I'm curious to hear what you all think. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. We also have a community Discord server for those of you interested in joining the conversation. Thanks again for watching, and we'll catch you on the flippity flop.